Ever wondered about the powerful message of Psalm 135? Let's dive into the first verse that calls us to praise. Verse 1 invites us to praise the Lord, a call to worship. In verse 2, we see the importance of gathering together. Verse 3 emphasizes the goodness of praising His name. Verse 4 reminds us that God chose Israel as His own. Verse 5 highlights the greatness of our God, beyond all gods. In verse 6, we see God's sovereignty over all creation. Verse 7 speaks of God's control over the elements. Verse 8 recounts the plagues of Egypt, a reminder of His power. In verse 9, we remember the miracles performed by God. Verse 10 speaks of God's judgment against nations. In verse 11, we see God's authority over kings. Verse 12 reminds us of the inheritance given to Israel. In verse 13, God's name is eternal and unchanging. Verse 14 reassures us of God's justice for His people. Verses 15 to 18 warn against idols and their emptiness. And finally, verses 19 to 21 encourages us to bless the Lord.